This is Inspiring Careers with your host, Ingrid Centurion. We're going to talk about fascinating technologies that will impact your future. Meet inspiring entrepreneurs and people that are making huge differences in the community and around the world. We're going to share career and life lessons of inspiration and success. Our mission is to inspire our viewers to make a better life for themselves by sharing our stories, our interviews, and documentaries. Please stay tuned as we have incredible guests coming up. Thanks for being with us today. Today we have Carol Ann with us. She has a background in education. She worked with kindergarten classes, and she's also lived through some family tragedies. She's managed to overcome these tragedies and make a better future for herself and her family. She's always been creative, and she is now the owner of Jarfette. This is a new word that she's created and she's trademarked. Thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I've got one of your Jarfettes on. Let's explain what this word is. Okay. Explain that to us.
So Jarfette is, I wanted a word that I could trademark that didn't exist in any language. So J is for jacket, ARF is for scarf, and Et's because it goes from large to small. And also Jarf didn't sound very good. So that's kind of how that came about. There was no word to explain what this is, and this is something that's new to the market. And so it needed a new word.
This is also an invention that you created.
Yes.
And you have submitted a patent on it.
I have, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to get the patent. It would be great, but I'm thinking design patents I've found are very difficult to get. And this one is a utility patent, but there's like a few more steps to jump through. Part of the utility of it is that first, it's a jacket, so it solves the no sleeves on your dresses issue, but it uses magnetic buttons. And every time I move my sleeve and I move my button, it becomes one of the 9 styles. So it can be headscarves, scarves, shawls, vests. And that's where the utility patent, that's why I applied for that.
How did you come up with this whole idea? One day you woke up, you had a dream, or what was it? Tell us the story there.
I was the president of Lawrence General Hospital Auxiliary, Women's Auxiliary, and we had a gala coming up. And I found the dress 3 months before. That was pretty easy. And I spent at least 2 or 3 days every single week for 3 months looking for something that would match the dress and look good on my body and not take away from the dress. And what I could come up with was the little shrug that has the short sleeves and it cuts in all the wrong spots. And it's usually knitted or so it just doesn't look right. Or you could have a shawl which slides off your shoulders. So it was a process. For the night of this gala, I ended up with a silk scarf, tied it around my wrist, but then in all the pictures it slid off and all you saw were arms. So that's when I realized I had to create something because the designers were not giving me what I wanted. And then I kind of found that there were a lot of people. I created it for me, not to start a business.
Exactly. And when did you start sewing?
I was about 4.
Wow.
So my grandmother taught me on the treadle machine.
Wow.
And I remember her standing over me, and if you didn't move your feet quite fast enough, everything backed up in the machine. So now it's a joy to have I have a wonderful serger now, and you can do all these great things with it that treadle machines you can't do. But I made all my clothes. I was very tall, and so I gave up my allowance when I was 8, and I went up the street to work for this old woman who she was like a retired teacher. For $3 a week, I worked for 3 hours. I think she just liked having someone there. And then I would save my money until I had enough money to buy a pattern and to buy fabric. And then I would make my own clothes growing up. So it was that was like the beginning of my independence.
How tall are you?
I used to be a full 5'9".
Oh, wow.
But apparently I'm shrinking according to the doctor's scale. I'm thinking something's wrong there, but
you got to go to yoga.
I started out really tall, and now I'm down to 5'7", but my arms are still a 5'9". So,
and
so I kind of look at that.
This is the Jarfette that I have on. It's covering my arms because I have a short shirt on today. So I really like it. It looks very elegant. I like it very much. So
when you were sewing and making all these things, how did the actual, like the process of, you said you put one sleeve into another sleeve, how did that come about?
I think some things are supposed to happen in life, and I cannot tell you why. So when I made this part of it where you have sleeves, and that was like a logical thinking, but for some reason I stuck one sleeve inside the other sleeve, pulled it up and realized I could make a scarf. And then I thought, well, let me see what else it will make, because now I was curious. But I honestly feel like this whole business has been somehow, the universe is telling me you're supposed to go for this. And I've been going for it. And I'm having a really fun time. And I've decided I don't like the business part of business at all. I like the meeting the women, and I like dressing women, and I love the designing. So that's the part that I continue to love, and the giving back.
So this came about as a need.
It came
you
out as a
needed
need.
something, you spent hours and hours looking for, and you couldn't find anything
Yeah.
to wear, and everything falls off. You're a seamstress, so you put this together, you invented this, and I mean, it's an invention, and you can wear this 9 different ways.
9 different ways.
Can you explain a little bit of the 9 different ways with us?
Sure.
Because we have the cozy with us right here.
Would you like to see what
Right.
it does?
Yeah, I'd like to see what it does.
Am I able to stand up to
Yeah,
show you?
you can stand
Okay.
up. Mhm.
So it starts as a jacket, so you have sleeves, and then there's the back of it, so it kind
Okay.
of comes down there. But then if I take one sleeve out and I move my button,
Oh,
I now have a second outfit.
okay.
So-
All right, let's go slow.
Okay.
Sit back down now.
All right.
That's your second outfit.
That's my second outfit.
How would I do that, though?
So you would just take
Talk
one
me through
sleeve
it.
out,
Talk me through it.
take this sleeve out,
Okay.
or that arm out of your sleeve,
Okay.
pull it across, and you kind of have to hold onto the magnet so you don't lose the magnet as you're
Okay.
pulling that off. Make sure you have the magnet, and then just put it on, and then you have a different look. You still
Where's
have the
my other
magnet.
magnet?
That-
Yeah.
that's the one
Oh, my
problem
magnet just fell.
when you're practicing.
Oh. See, bad demo.
You have to make sure you still have the magnet.
All right, let me put my arm back in. Forget that. We'll scratch that one out. No, I like that. But all right, I still got this outfit. All right, now, so that's 2.
So that's two
Two,
ways
okay.
that you can wear it.
All right, now how will we go into the third one?
So the third one that I want to show you, on my website, we actually have a video, a tutorial
Right.
that people can watch so they can get all of the parts. But this is the other part that's really cool, is you take one sleeve and you insert the top sleeve into the bottom sleeve,
Okay.
pull it up, and then when I move my magnet, I'm not going to actually leave it there, but that's exactly what happens.
Oh, okay.
So you have a scarf, and if you want to make it shorter, you just keep going through the hole, and you can make it shorter. And so my tagline is create your own unique style, because that's what you're really doing. And I've had women create really interesting styles that I wouldn't have thought of, and they look beautiful. So it's kind of fun.
All right, so that was
That was 3 ways.
3. Okay.
And then there's a headscarf. There's actually a headscarf going both in the front and the back.
So you would just take this off and put it on over the head.
You're still using the sleeves, though.
I'm still using the
You're
sleeves.
still using the sleeves,
Okay.
but that's just a little more complicated without a mirror.
Right.
I'm not as practiced at that.
Okay, we'll stop at 4.
And then there's and then there's a vest, and depending on someone's size, for me, I don't tend to wear the vest because I don't like the look on me as much.
Okay.
But somebody that's smaller, one of my models that was in the tutorial was a very petite person, and so she actually put a belt around the vest, and it looked wonderful. So
okay.
it's so I'd encourage you to just kind of
Right.
watch the tutorial, because that'll give you a better sense of how to do that.
And then after the vest, what do we have?
So we have there's a shawl as well, so it makes a shawl, and then there's one that's twisted, and so there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. But then I've seen people just take the sleeve and kind of put it and leave it almost open and just like put the buttons on, and it looks really neat
Oh,
too.
that's a good one too. Okay.
So I'm not so sure it can't turn into like something. Well, somebody suggested that if you had a nursing mom, not on the sheer ones, but the ones that are not as sheer, she could actually flip it around backwards. So she could be wearing it, flip it around backwards, nurse the baby, and then she's can just flip it back, and she's stylish.
You also have done some work with hospitals and how women go through cancer.
That's
and
right.
This was something that they used to cover their heads, you know, with the scarf.
Well, I have had some women who are losing chemo, like hair to chemo, and my original master's was in counseling, and so it has been a privilege for me to sit with some of these women as they haven't quite accepted their diagnosis. They're just trying to wrap their head around it. And literally, I'll just bring some of the headscarves and we'll kind of talk. And people don't know that my background is a counselor. And so I'm able to hear them in a different way. And I know from having, my daughter was ill in high school, and because of that, I know how much it means to have somebody who's not part of your family be able to talk with you when you're in this just very difficult space. And a whole part of what I do, the goal of the company is really to be able to dress women and give them what they need for the fashion end, but then give it back to women who are dealing with major illness in my cozies and the headscarves.
And that's how you came up with the cozy.
That's right.
So we've got the cozy here with us.
So
And
it was
this
when
is
I saw the fabric.
Yeah, show us this one.
It's the same exact shape as the jacket, the jacket scarf, but it's not really intended to turn into a whole lot of different things. So I'll show you how it works. So you have it there, but I'll just put it over the Jarfette I have on now.
That's nice.
So
Nice and warm.
it's really warm. It's really cozy. That's the word. But what it has is it has snaps, and each of the snaps opens so that just like your hospital Johnny would. And so if somebody needs to, and it does the same thing on this side, if somebody's in a wheelchair and you need ease of dressing, or even if somebody has hurt their shoulder, so say they've had shoulder surgery or just have a frozen shoulder, this makes it much easier to get around. But the main thing that I saw when I found this material and sewed it into this shape was, all I could think of was my daughter when she was in high school and she was so ill. I couldn't get anything around her IVs, and it didn't exist. And anything that did exist were really the Johnny material that was itchy and uncomfortable.
Right.
So I've now had, usually you don't hear what the outcome is, you know, and if somebody's going on hospice, I mean, you know, sadly, that's what the outcome will be. But to know that somebody has been wrapped up at the end in one of these cozies, and that meant something to that person, that they felt the love of other women and the compassion, that to me is what's really important.
That's one of your philosophies of your company, compassion and hope, and really helping other women.
And it's the main thing, and it's about women, really women helping other women through their purchases. They may be, you know, styling themselves for, I do a lot of mothers of the bride, mothers of the groom now. And so they're, you know, they'll bring me their dress, and if it has sleeves, they don't need me. If it doesn't have sleeves, I can custom make what they want. But part of the pricing is not only is it all handmade and it's made in the US, but it also then goes to help support someone who couldn't afford that cozy. So it's really about women helping other women. And it's not to say that we don't have men who buy, but for the most part, it's women making the choices.
Very good. Let me see that soft, nice, cozy
And people
fabric.
do pat you when you go by.
Right. Yeah, it's soft. I'm all pink today, so I like it. Keep me nice and warm here in the studio. Gets cold. Now, you also have a variety of buttons.
Okay. So what we have,
You got some. I got some right here that you
these
brought
are the
in with us.
magnetic buttons.
Okay.
And they come in different, like the magnetic button you have is a more basic button.
Okay.
So it's not as fancy. The ones that I'm wearing and the ones on here are the dichroic buttons. So actually my college roommate, Judy, cooks them for me. So it gives us a chance to get together, which is really nice. But she has a kiln and she actually makes them for me. And then I add the magnets and all of those pieces. So, and they're all gorgeous, the ones that she's done. So people can upgrade to the dichroic buttons. And then I'm always looking for different ideas for buttons. So we now have these blingy, they're a little bit blingy. So they're not, you know, they're not quite as fancy as the dichroics, but they give a little bit of bling.
A little bling there, good.
So, and each one of them will have, so this is kind of how they work. So you have the front of it, and there's a magnet that's attached to the back, and these are pretty strong magnets. So if somebody has a diabetes pump or a pacemaker, they're not supposed to wear the magnets. And you're not supposed to feed them to your children or your dog. Actually, my dog stole them one day. I put them out because they needed sun to cure, and the dog actually grabbed one. There was a lot of trying to catch the dog.
Right.
And then on the back, there's a backer, kind of like the backers that you would have if you have the name tags.
Okay.
So that's essentially what goes in the back. And then you put the top piece goes over your scarf, the Jarfette. The bottom piece goes under your dress or shirt, whatever you're wearing. And if it's something super, super thick, I wouldn't trust that it will, you know, if you've got like a big sweater on that you're trying to put it underneath, I probably wouldn't. But for like a normal dress, these will hold because they're really strong.
And these, you can buy these magnets if we wanted them, just a magnet in general to wear on
so
outfits.
what
'Cause, you know, I hate when you wear those name tags and you have to put a pin in your jacket and you could ruin it. So it's nice to have
and that's what
a pretty magnet.
And that's part of why I came up with the magnets, was I realized that a lot of the fabrics I like are really sheer and really beautiful, and I wanted to work with those, but I didn't want every time you held it for you to get a pull in it and run it. So people can buy them, and some of them only come as pairs, and then I have some that are singles, so if somebody just wanted to buy just one. I go to a lot of shows, and this year I'm doing some very big shows, women's shows. So, you know, that's kind of where I meet people and they can physically see what I have.
What's your next show coming up?
So the next one is the Metro West Women's Conference.
And that's,
so
what's the date of that one?
September 20th. It's a Thursday, September 20th.
September 20th, okay.
So I'm very excited. They have 600 women coming, so that'll be good. And then I have a bridal show at the end of September in Hartford, and then some other women's shows that are coming up through between now and December.
Now, are there certain, you have a large variety of different fabrics, and
I do.
you have something that's computerized, you were telling me, or the digital
yes.
designs. Explain to me the...
I'm starting to digitally print my own fabrics, which I'm finding really exciting because I can take an image, and I think we're going to show some of the fabrics afterwards, and I'll show you which ones I've printed. But I took a picture up at our camp of sawdust on the ground. So sawdust is kind of, you know, it's brown. I mean, there's nothing exciting. But I was able digitally to stretch the image and color the image so that the sawdust is actually, it's this beautiful, there's blues, there's greens, there's some, you know, dark pinks in that same piece that started out as a picture of sawdust. And then originally I had someone from my town who had the machines to digitally fabric print, which was great because she was only, you know, 4 miles away, and she's no longer going to be doing those. She's selling her machines. So there's a big place that I send them to. And so it can take, if you want the more custom, it can take up to a month to get those because it has to go now through this national company. I can't do them as quickly because it just takes, their turnaround time takes some time.
Okay. All right, well, let's go to break and have the demonstration of the Jarfettes.
Okay.
Welcome back. I've got a different Jarfette on right now, and we want to show you a demo, and we've got a lot of different fabrics here with us today. And Carol, give us a demonstration on how this all works.
So what I showed you when we were sitting was kind of how you start converting it. And so what I kind of want to show you is just talk a little bit about the process of how you get these, how you make them. And we talked a little bit about digital fabric printing. So I first talked about the sawdust.
Oh, okay.
This was the image of sawdust. And you would never guess that it looks like sawdust. And I've found that, like, through this journey, I don't love technology at all, but I've realized that I'm willing to try to work with Photoshop because it helps me stretch it and get the images to be really clear. And so this is one of the ones that was sent away to be digitally fabric printed, which is it's a much better process because you can make them one at a time. And if I have 2 orders, I can send in 2 different orders for fabrics.
Is that called sawdust? What's the name of this one?
Let's see, I'm trying to think what I called it. Most of them have a name.
Right.
I may have called it sawdust,
Right.
but because it's like after you have enough, you start to run out of
Names for different fabrics.
So it's
Imagine what would an orange look like?
you could shift it to an orange, but
Right,
let me
'cause,
show you an
if that's
orange.
sawdust, imagine other things that you
Yep.
could work on with this digital.
So this is
color.
another one. And the woman I told you that was in my town with her business, she actually was able to print this one for me. And I'm part of the network of Polka Dot Powerhouse. So their colors are pink and orange, and polka dots are their big thing. And it was very difficult to find pink and orange in any kind of a chiffon fabric. I could find things that were cotton, but they don't flow the way these need to. So I created this, I designed it. And if somebody prefers orange near their face, they can actually put it on upside down. And nobody would know it's upside down in the entire world except for me. People will ask that all the time, well, how do you know which way is right side up and upside down? Because there's no tag in the back. And it kind of doesn't matter, but it has to do with how thick, when you look at the edge, like if you look at the edge of yours, the thick part should be on, like, facing you.
Right.
And if you turn it over, the thinner part, the thinner seam, should be facing down.
Okay, I see that.
But as I say, no one except for me will ever know that you have it on upside down. But this one's kind of nice because you can flip it. And then when you put it in different positions, the oranges and the pinks flow together, which is really kind of nice. And then there's other ones that are, so we have more like ombres. So this is not one that I've made myself, but you've got, a darker pink to a lighter pink. And again, you could flip this kind upside down. And this is one that's also digitally fabric printed. And if you take a look, what do you see in it? Do you see anything? What does it remind you of, like the white spots?
It just looks like the water, like a pool.
It's actually the ocean in Belize. So we were on a
Really?
cruise, and I just kept taking pictures of things and then thinking, oh, I could do this with that. So this is actually the ocean in Belize. This is like the way the foam was hitting on the top.
Right.
So I was able to digitally fabric print that. So my hope is eventually not to carry so much inventory, but to actually have people to choose from digital files that can be then made one at a time, so we're not wasting fabric, and it can be made here.
Will you be, so I can send you a digital photo of one of my vacations and you can make me,
It would have to be in the exact, like you'd have to have it already stretched to the exact what you want it to look like, or it's not gonna look, like you might have an image in your head, but if, say if it started out as something big, like a big flower, your flower will stretch like this as you Photoshop and move it.
Right. Oh.
And so it may not look like what you think it will. There are gonna be some people who work with graphics that could actually send me that. I could tell them what the file would be. But
That's
I think
nice.
overall it'll be a matter of, finding exactly, the right way to do it.
I really like that one.
This
It does
one's-
look like the water.
It does.
So
It's
it
just
reminds
really-
you of your vacation.
Yeah, it's really fun.
What other interesting ones do you
And
have?
so I've just started, I went to New York recently, and actually my daughter and I got to take a class with one of the silk painters. and most of the silk painters are overseas, are not overseas, I'm sorry, in California. Well, there are ones overseas too, but not in the Boston, New York area. So the closest class I could find at that time was actually in New York. So we went this summer, and this was my playtime. So we actually learned how to work with silk. So each one of these pieces is painted. So I have been having a blast all summer. You know, it's been kind of my fun outlet, you know, my design outlet. So I've been working with that, and then, you know, creating them and then sewing them into Jarfettes. And then this is one that I made last year. I learned how to work with alcohol ink. So I just started teaching some classes in how to do it. I started with my friends, so we would see how that went, and it was a wonderful class. But this was an alcohol inks, and so it's essentially Sharpies and 91% alcohol, and then there's salt thrown in, and can get really messy. I was kind of messy, I think, but I really had a great time.
Right.
So that's like, you know, so that's something that I'm starting to teach. I'm doing some more bridal things, so that, you know, I'm working on just kind of some shawls, and now I'm making some things for purses. So this was one of the ones we made in New York. And what I realized was just being able to flow the colors. You could do so many really neat things with it.
So you drew that butterfly?
Well, my butterfly wasn't going well, so
And no, it
I'm
looks like a
very good
butterfly.
at three-dimensional
Right.
things.
I see it.
But for a first try, it's like the two-dimensional was a little, I was struggling, but they had a pattern for the butterfly. So you started drawing with this kind of a brownish dye, and then there's like little lines in it, and it's a resist. So that's how it doesn't, like, you can color on the inside when you put these little lines, like they stick up, almost as if you put like Elmer's glue, like the washable glue, and it was sticking up a little high. It keeps the dye from running into the next part of it. So there's like still some learning curve here, but
Okay.
it's just so much fun. And this is another one of the ombres here. So you can just get a sense of, you can just take one,
Right.
and this is very simple. You know, it doesn't have to have a pattern, but again, you could do the same thing with flipping it over if you wanted the purple closer to your
Okay.
face. Then we have silks. I mean, we have a ton of fabrics. We have lots and lots, and so this is a really nice silk floral. This is another one that we did in New York. So this was my daughter and I worked on this one ourselves.
Okay.
So now I have that process, I think, down. This has been one of our more favorite patterns, and for the most part with the Jarfette Designs, I want women to have something that's their own, very specific for them, and because most women know what their color is, and just because
Or they're like cougar or
right.
peacock.
They want something
or tiger,
that's
right?
different. And so, but this one has become a really popular one. So I actually broke down and went back and got more of this fabric. For the most part, I buy enough to make one or two designs. And so when you get it, sometimes you have a one of a kind.
Okay.
This one did have like a little bit more, because I just found people were really wanting peacock.
Okay.
So I got that. And this one is a real fun one. So I've worn this with this dress before, and you see, but you can also do it with the pink dress. But the flower will come out on your back, and then these are on your arms, and that's very much by design in terms of how you cut the fabric and where you put it.
I love my Jarfette, and I tried on two. So thank you so much.